Hey, this is Bradley with Semantic Links, and this is the Competitive Link Analysis Reports Explained video. So in this video, I just want to explain how we generate these reports and why they're so valuable, how we interpret the data to make decisions about the campaign, specifically what it needs, all that kind of stuff. This is really the starting point for any sort of link building activity that we do at Semantic Links. So, if anybody ever asks me, what would you recommend for this? I always point to the Competitive Link Analysis Report request first and say, go get that. And then I can review the data and provide you with a recommendation. And these are very valuable reports. Whether you end up working with us at Semantic Links or not, I think it's important for you to understand the value of these reports so that you can implement these within your own agency if you choose to, which I highly suggest that you do. But in any case, I want to talk through how this, how we go about generating these competitive link analysis reports and then how we interpret that data to inform our decisions about specifically what the campaign needs, the quantity of links, the anchor text of those links, the topical requirements of them, etc. So that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to try to make it efficient, but there is a lot to get through. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So whenever you submit a competitive link analysis report request, you get to submit up to 3 search queries. And then we're going to go out and analyze the top ranked competitors for each of the queries that you submitted. The first thing that we do is we go geolocate the browser to simulate a search from the area where the location where the GBP is physically located. So if I come up here, I'll show you, we use the Bright Local SERP checker to simulate a local search from a particular location. Okay, so in this example project that I'm demonstrating with today, it's Title Touch Home Cleaning, which is a house cleaning company in Chicago, Illinois. So we go, you submit the information, and then we're going to go look at the GBP information and find out where is the Google Business Profile physically located. And then we're going to go to the Bright Local SERP checker, and we're going to put in this case, Chicago. So I'll just go ahead and demonstrate this. So we're going to do Chicago IL, and then I'm going to just copy the, the search query here that just to show how we, essentially copy the search queries that were submitted, and then we go analyze those search queries and see who are the top ranked competitors for that particular query. Okay, so if we click on check search results and we click on to page 1, you'll see that we actually have search down here that it's showing Chicago, Illinois as the area that we searched from. And then we can see there's a 3-pack plus an ad, so a 4-pack up here. And then we look at the top ranked competitor pages. All right. And what we're doing is we're pulling in the top ranked pages for each of these search queries here. Each sheet we title after the search query that we use to collect the data. Okay. So in this case, house cleaning near me, these are the top 5 ranked competitor pages that are ranking for that search query with the geolocated browser set to simulate a search from Chicago. Okay. So something that you'll notice, we try to eliminate any big directory sites because what we want to identify are other local business type websites that have ranking pages for this particular search query. Remember, Google doesn't rank websites for search queries, it ranks web pages. But a web pages or a website's overall optimization level, its structure, its backlink profile, all of that influences how a page is going to perform in search. And so we always want to start looking at page level metrics, but we need to look at overall domain level metrics to truly understand what we're competing with, because we're really competing at the domain level, not the page level. Okay. But that said, we don't want to look at big directory sites like Yelp or Angie or, Home Advisor, if that's still a thing, or, really any of the big directory sites when possible. Sometimes they'll slip through in these analyses, but for the most part, we want to identify other local business type sites that are performing well for the particular search queries that we're analyzing, because it's likely that the client's website is a local business type of a website. And so we want to see what are the other local businesses that are ranking well for this? What are they doing as far as their backlinks go? And how can we model that but just do it with better, more relevant links so that we can also, or the client can also perform well for those queries? And so we really do that. We pull out the 5 top ranked local business type websites that have ranking pages for the particular search queries that we're analyzing. And then we're going to go analyze the backlink profiles of each of those ranking pages. And then we classify the backlinks into one of 5 anchor text types or categories, as I'm about to explain here in a minute. And we basically plug all that data into this sheet here, and it gives us an average of the top 5 ranked competitors' backlink profile, the average number of links. And then it also kind of divvies up the anchor text into these 5 specific types or categories so that then we can come up with an anchor text ratio. So before I go any further, let me explain what those are. A brand/URL is an anchor text including the brand name or the company name, or a URL, naked URL, URL anchor, anything, one of those. I don't particularly like URL anchors. I do like using brand anchors more than anything. And by the way, that's the most prominent anchor text type in local search queries backlink analysis. Almost always, like 90 to 95% of all local search queries that we analyze show brand/URL is the primary anchor text type. So we always want to focus mostly on building links with brand anchors, or what I call as a compound anchor, which is a brand plus type of an anchor, meaning brand plus a location modifier or brand plus a product or service type of a keyword, right? Something like that, where a compound anchor just means it's got the company name included in the anchor text, but it might have some additional words in the anchor text phrase, okay? And that's perfectly fine. And that's actually what I recommend. Instead of doing anchor text links, consider just doing brand plus type anchors that includes, keyword in alongside the brand. That's a lot safer, and that's Google's data doesn't lie. It tells us what it wants to see because we analyze these types of these competitive link analysis reports we do for every client every month for every keyword that we're analyzing. And so we have almost 4 years of backlink profile data for the top ranked competitors for local search queries. And it's almost always, like I said, 90 to 95% of the time that we analyze top ranking performers for local search queries, the average anchor text ratio is primarily in the brand/URL anchor text type. So that's what we should be focusing on. Number 2 is miscellaneous, or another term for that would be generic. So that'd be like click here, learn more, this post, website, those types of things. Empty/frame anchor is an iframe or an embed, a redirect or an image backlink without alternative text. A target anchor is a keyword plus location modifier type of an anchor. So that could be keyword plus city or city plus keyword, or keyword plus maybe a county, which is a little bit more rare, or a state, or a near me modifier, such as near me, nearby, in my area, around me, close to me, those types of things. Any sort of kind of location modifier appended or prepended to the keyword anchor text would make that a target anchor, okay? And then a topic anchor is a keyword only anchor without a location modifier. So out of these top 5 anchor text types, or out of these 5 anchor text types, these 3 are non-keyword anchors. You cannot over-optimize for those 3, but you can over-optimize for these 2 being the 2 keyword anchor text types. Remember, target is keyword plus location, topic is keyword only, all right? And so we go look at backlink profiles to each of the top 5 ranked competitor pages that are ranking for that particular search query with a geolocated browser. Then we look at the backlink profiles pointing to each of those pages, and then we classify the anchor text of the links pointing to each of those pages into those 5 categories, and we just plug that data into here based upon our analysis and classification of the anchor text. And so that gives us the average number of links for the ranking pages for this search query. And then it gives us the average anchor text ratio for the top ranked competitors for that search query. And so what that tells us is then we go look at the target asset. So in this case, this is the client's company, TitleTouchCleaning.com. And then we go analyze that backlink profile pointing to that page. And you also notice the Google map, we usually want to just see if there's been any links built to that or not. And then an ID page. ID page is something that we create as part of our link building process and service. It's something you can reference in the @ID field of the local business schema, which tells the search engines and the language models that there is a dedicated resource where all of the location information can be found, like any sort of citations, business directory listings, anything that supports or validates the name, address, phone number, and website information for this campaign is all referenced in what we call as an ID page. And so we create an ID page for all of our link building clients in the first month, if you're using our services, because it's a critical component to building branded location authority, and we build links to that. And since we have a reference to all of the citations or any sort of external page URL that has name, address, phone number, and website information published about that business, we consolidate and reference all of those external page URLs into an ID page so that when we build links to the ID page, we're literally powering up the brand and all of its kind of, its entire ecosystem of digital assets, all from one centralized location. It's very powerful, but in any case, that's beyond the competitive analysis report. That's something that we do anyways. I'm just pointing that out so that you know what that's for. But we then go analyze the backlink profiles pointing to the page that should be ranking for that query for the client. And we classify the anchor text there. We use Majestic as our backlink analysis application because Majestic has what's known as topical trust flow. It's not the metric that matters, just to be clear. Google doesn't care about any third-party metrics. Google doesn't care about DA. Google doesn't care about DR, nor does it care about trust flow. But the reason why we use Majestic is because Majestic has this metric known as topical trust flow, which shows the topical relevance, or it's a classification system for the topical relevance of external backlinks, okay? And so you can see, like, for example, this is Molly Maid. Molly Maid has a trust flow value of 22, which, just so you know, the primary metrics for Majestic are trust flow and citation flow, trust flow being a measure of link quality and strength, and citation flow being a measure of link quantity. But as I just mentioned a moment ago, Google doesn't care about any third-party metrics, including these. So these aren't really important. What matters, though, is are the backlinks pointing to the domain relevant? Are they in the appropriate and proper topical category? Because Google places value upon links depending upon how relevant they are. Google doesn't care about the trust flow or the DA or the DR, okay? What it cares about is, are these links relevant? And remember, language models operate under the same kind of principle now, because language models understand our language, hence the name language models, right? And so What it's looking for is relevance. It's not looking for stupid third-party metrics that nobody cares about, okay? It's looking for, are the links relevant? They're only going to place value upon a link if it's relevant to what it's linking to. So that's why I use topical trust flow. It's not the metric that matters. It's the topical classification of external backlinks. And this is a fairly accurate indicator of the topical relevance of those backlinks. So then if the backlink profile is relevant, then the trust flow value can be considered an important number, because trust flow being a measure of link quality and strength, if it's a non-relevant link profile, then it doesn't matter what this number is. It could be trust flow 40 plus, which would be really high for a local business. But if it's a non-relevant link profile, those links are largely being ignored. So this number doesn't mean much of anything until and unless you have the backlink profile is relevant, and then that becomes an important number. So if the backlink profile is relevant and it has a high trust flow value, that means the backlinks are relevant and they are strong. And that's what that's saying. But having strong links that aren't relevant isn't really helpful. So the whole point that I'm trying to make is we use Majestic specifically for the topical trust flow classification of external backlinks. It's not really the metric that matters, but since that's what we have to go off of, that's what we use. Okay, so with that said, we jump back over here and we take a look at this, and we can see that this particular campaign looks like they're just starting link building, so there's not really been any links built to this. So it only has 1 link. But what does this tell us? Well, this tells us quantity-based metrics that is a good starting point, right? I mentioned earlier that we want to look at 2 levels of backlink profile data, right? Page level metrics for the backlink profiles to the ranking pages for the top ranked competitors. And then we also want to look at the overall domain level metrics, backlink profile metrics for each of those websites that have ranking pages, okay? So, but what this tells us then is at the page level for this particular search query, that this homepage of this website only has 1 backlink, and the average number of backlinks for the other top 5 ranked pages is 67. So what does that indicate? That indicates that now we know for a fact how many links we can build to this page before we approach or exceed that number, which we always try to stay at or below the average number of links when possible, because we do not want to draw unnecessary attention to the campaign by becoming an outlier with an excessive quantity of links. Do you understand? So we always try to stay at or below the average number of links when possible. Sometimes we have to exceed it in order to correct an anchor text ratio imbalance or a topical relevance imbalance, or sometimes it's already been exceeded when we take on a campaign. But when possible, we always try to stay at or below that average number of links, okay? So this tells us the quantity of links that we can build to this page so that we can stay at or below that number. But then it also tells us when we're placing those links, which anchor text should we use, so that we can get the backlink profile and the anchor text ratio for the target to model or to be similar to what the average of the other top 5 are doing, because Google's already rewarding these top 5 competitors with top ranking position for that search query. So if this client here wants to rank for that search query too, then we know that we can build roughly 65 links or so to the page. I'm not saying we will build that many, but we have the capacity to build that many. And then it also tells us that when we're building the anchor text that we should be using should be primarily brand. And we've got, anywhere between 8 to 10% keyword anchors that we can use when building links directly to this page. All right, so that gives us the quantity-based metrics, but we also have to look at the topical relevance requirements, because so far we've talked about quantity and how we analyze this information to determine what the campaign needs, but we also need to identify what are the topical requirements for those links to be given the most value or credit, okay? And so then I use another tool for that. It's called On-Page AI. That's right here. I'm not here to pitch anybody on the tool. I'm just showing you that this tool integrates with Google's natural language AI. So what we are doing here is actually sending these page URLs to Google, to ask Google to tell us what does Google understand about the topical categories identified on each of these pages. So just so you know, we take the target asset plus the top 5 ranked pages for that particular search query, in this case, house cleaning near me, and we plug them in here, and we're looking at the page level, not the domain level. We want Google to analyze each of these pages, not the entire domain, and tell us which topical categories did Google identify in the content bodies of each of these pages. And you can see it's the same category was found for all 5. So we list that data here. You'll notice each sheet has its own set of data. Now in this case, well, see this one, move out cleaning, has another category that was identified, business and industrial transportation and logistics, moving and relocation. So each search query we run this analysis for, the competitive link analysis reports, but then we also get the topical relevance requirements according to Google, and then we match up Majestic's topical trust flow categories with those natural language categories. So these are the most specific and relevant topical trust flow categories according to Majestic that align with Google's natural language category that was identified, or categories that were identified on the top ranked pages. So what we're trying to do here is not only determine how many links we can build and what anchor text to use when placing those links, but we also want to determine what are the topical relevance requirements of those links in order for them to be given the most value. And we determine all of that through the process that I just described. So now we know how many links to build, which anchor text to use when building those links, and which topical categories we should be looking for when identifying link sources that we're going to publish our posts onto that contain contextual links back to the target asset. So now we can really set out to go find the most relevant link sources based upon all of this data, okay? So that's kind of how the competitive link analysis reports work, like how we collect this data. And then, like I said, we interpret the data based upon the averages for the top ranked competitors and the topical relevance requirements according to Google. So then there's a couple other things that we include in the competitive analysis reports. We have the Bright Local reports, and now we also have AI SEO reports. So I'm going to briefly describe each one of those. The Bright Local reports are the kind of local rank tracking type of reports that we provide for all of our clients, because we need to know what sort of an effect our links are having on the campaign. And so we do not want access to your Google Business, Google Search Console or Google Analytics or Google Business Insights for any of your clients. We don't want the access. We don't need it. What we do is just monitor how is the campaign performing in search. So we look at organic rank tracking, we look at local search grid tracking, and we also look at citations, because just so you know, citations is one of the most important things right now for not only improving maps ranking performance, but also for improving AI search performance, okay? So we'll come back to this in just a moment. But what I'm showing you here is the local SEO reports, which includes the organic rank tracker. Then it also has the local search grid tracker, which shows how the Google business profile is performing in search depending on what search query it is. This campaign's not doing very well. It's also, Metro Chicago, so it's very competitive. But we look at the different search queries and like how is it performing for those queries. And then we also have the citation tracker. And as I mentioned just a moment ago, citations is one of the most important things that you can do right now for improving maps ranking performance, as well as for improving AI search performance. And we're going to go look at that report here in just a moment. So I am recommending to almost all clients now that they should have, at the bare minimum, at least 60 citations that are thoroughly optimized. That should be the bare minimum. But if it's a published street address business, you really should have 100 plus citations, because if you do that, then it's likely going to be performing much better, not only in maps, but also in AI search performance, okay? So those are the 3 reports that we provide as part of the competitive link analysis reports. And again, that's listed in the project data sheet right there. You can always click onto that link and go view the reports yourself. Then we have the AI SEO reports. That's here. And this is where we go, and we're testing a few different prompts, search prompts across Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Google AI Overviews, which is Gemini. I'm not sure why it says AI Overviews. It's, that's all powered by Gemini, so it ought to just be called Gemini in my opinion. But what we do here is typically we're going to look at 2 or 3 search queries that are relevant to the business, and that's these queries here that were submitted when the competitive analysis report request was submitted. And so in this case, I used 3 search queries. So house cleaning, deep cleaning, or house cleaning service, or house cleaning, whatever, and a deep cleaning service, and move in, move out cleaning. And so basically 2 or 3 search queries, but then we'll do 2 or 3 prompts per query. So we end up with 6 prompts. That's usually our normal kind of settings to start with, is 6 prompts. So it's either going to be 3 prompts times 2 queries, or 2 prompts times 3 queries. Does that make sense? Anyways, as you can see, we have the 6 queries here. If you just click on the matrix, this shows how those queries and this was localized for Chicago, as you can see, how they are performing or not performing in AI search, okay? And again, Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Gemini. That's what we're looking at here. So this campaign, you can tell from the organic rank tracker, the local search grid tracker, and the AI SEO tracker that it's, it definitely needs some off-page work, some link building. It's not performing very well. So, but as I mentioned earlier, citations is one of the most important things that you can do to improve AI SEO performance, search performance, okay? So, and we already saw that this company has a very few number of citations, and that's why I'm going to recommend to this client that they get Yext Power Listings or something comparable, so that we can increase the citation quantity significantly with thoroughly optimized citations, okay? So, and that over time, the whole point here is to get the company to be referenced or a brand mention in these AI search results for each of these, AI models here, okay? That's kind of the goal. And 2 things that we can do off page to help influence that are citations and press releases. There's also a lot of on-page stuff that can be done, but that's beyond the scope of the competitive link analysis reports, okay? So all of that then is just to show you that this is kind of how we determine what the campaign needs, and then we base all of our decisions about the quantity of links, the anchor text of those links, and the topical relevance requirements, all based upon what this data shows us. And you can see the level of competition. This is a little bit more of an obscure keyword, so not quite as much, and in this one, not as much either. But those are the competitive link analysis reports from Semantic Links. Essentially, this is a very valuable service because it helps determine exactly what the campaign needs, what the top-ranked competitors are doing, why they're performing well, and it gives us the ability to then model that just with better, more relevant links. So whenever we go to place links for this campaign, we will be placing links in topical categories coming from these topical trust flow categories so that we can push this appropriate relevance into the campaign to help it to perform better. So that's it. Bradley Benner with Semantic Links, the competitive link analysis reports explained. These are highly valuable and important kind of reports to have, to always reference whenever you're building any sort of links to a campaign. If you use this sort of an analysis, you'll know exactly how many links you can build and what the anchor texts are, and specifically the topical relevance requirements of those links in order for them to provide the most value and the most effect. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. This is Bradley with Semantic Links.